What up, what up? Take this off because we got to get down to business today. So, I told you I was coming back. And it's something that's very crazy because this post today, I seen a couple of responses and I'm not really offended, but it's something that I feel should be expressed, right? Because I thought to myself, well, maybe some of my Hispanic friends, when they see this post, they might misunderstand what I mean, right? Because I do have a lot of Hispanic friends and family members, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted to be clear, right? Because I think that's the problem with social media. Like we get on the net and it's so much being thrown at us every day. Like it's almost uncomfortable. Like we get on and some days it's like I get on the net and when I get on the net, it's like my first couple posts, you just invaded by, Chud the Builder or this and that, right? So one of the things that I was talking about was it was a post that was on Facebook and I shared it on my page. And matter of fact, let me put it in the comments before we get started. Hold on. Let me see. Unpin. Give me 1 second. I'm going to write the topic. The most racist group of people in America is black people. And it was said by a Hispanic man. And I'm going to tell you why now. Unlike most people that come up here with emotion, I'm going to talk to you about the statement, the point of view, the historical reference, why it's not historically accurate. It's his point of view, so I can respect it. But then also what I know about Hispanic and Latino. See, a lot of people don't realize that when I be working in that places, for years, a lot of them thought I was like a lot of Hispanics I work with that's close friends of mine, they used to be like, yo, you from Mexico? Because they know that there's a lot of indigenous Mexicans and Hispanics, in these countries, El Salvador, when you get to Guatemala and these places or wherever, like in these places, South America, when you go to the areas of the places that where the indigenous people are, they're still dark. You know what I'm saying? And like the guy that did that live, a couple weeks ago, and he was like, he was like, most of all the Hispanics know it, but it's just something they don't speak about, right? And so the post says, I hate to say it, but, and this is his opinion. He said, I hate to say it, but the most racist group, and I'm gonna show y'all the post real quick. Hold on. Right here. I'm gonna show y'all this. It says, I hate to say it, but the most racist group in America is black people. Right? And now, I'm gonna say this from the beginning. I felt like when he used the word racist is what threw this off. Right? Now, we talk about law abiding in certain other areas, you know what I'm saying? Then it'd be a little better, right? Because I could see a point in certain things. But when he said racist, it comes off a little wrong. When you look at the bottom, it says law and order. But racism isn't really a law issue, technically. Like, it's an issue, but it wouldn't fall under the category of, like, if you say, like, they're the most rebellious or they're the most catch a crowd, something like that, right? But the issue with this statement is, okay, one, I have a lot of Hispanic friends, and meaning like my black friends, men who date Hispanic women, right? And it don't really be a problem in that much. But when it comes down to family, right? When it comes down to not their immediate family, but their family back home, right? Like I had one friend tell me one time, like, yo, I had to stop sending my daughter to South America because when she would send her home, they would always talk about how dark she is, right? And so I had another homeboy who was dating a girl who was Hispanic from South America, but when her mother came, her mother was light-skinned, but her father was brown-skinned. And so that's when I learned about, there's a separation out there too, right? So I want people to get it clear. Don't ever get it twisted. Racism exists in South America and Mexico too because they were colonized by the Portuguese, just like we were colonized by, right, a certain group of people, right? Christopher Columbus sold South America to the Portuguese and then gave Europe the islands that became America. So my issue with this is, I don't think anybody, before I go into the stories, let me back up because I want to clarify. I don't think other people really have the right to call black people racist in America because they didn't have the same experience. And I'm not saying Hispanics didn't go through shit, right? But I don't think Hispanics understand if they get a law dictionary and they go in the law books and they look up free white persons. The definition said anybody with Moorish blood. And Moorish meaning like dark-skinned African blood. You know what I'm saying? Because the Moors on the continent, and it's supposed to be the Moors and the Hispanics because they are brothers. So if you look at free white persons, you'll see anybody with Moorish blood, and you'll see all the Latino and Hispanic named, who's included in this Moorish blood, right? So the reason for nobody talks about it. The reason for the high cheekbones and the thick beards, that's the African gene. That's the African presence inside of them, including, remember, what they don't teach in school is that the Portuguese colonized the Pacific Ocean first. And so during the colonization of South America, a lot of people didn't want to be classified, didn't want to be mistreated with the dark-skinned people who spoke Spanish. Because remember, I was explaining to my boss at work that the Moors' mother tongue was Spanish. That's why in the law books, the name of Spanish is Moorish Latin, right? And I wanted to do this not for separation. I want everybody who watches this video to understand, one, I'm not attacking Hispanics, right? Because I understand that they're my brothers and sisters, even though I understand that it's not all. In my post, I said not all. And I was very clear about that. I have family members who are Hispanic. I got close home. So I want everybody to understand where I'm coming from because we have to bridge this gap if we're going to fix some of this, right? So racist. I really don't feel anybody has the right to call black people racist if you haven't been under that same pressure. And the reason why I say that is everybody, like people say, well, everybody's been enslaved, Willie. And I'll say you're right. But see, a lot of people don't have enough understanding to understand you right. But, you know, when the Moors ruled Europe, they enslaved them, but they didn't enslave them. They built schools and education, but they did introduce them to, they was like servitude, but they still had rights and dignities. Slaves all over the country, like they say, well, Africans had slaves, they still had rights and dignities, right? So you would say African because you see two dark-skinned people, but the people that you see that they selling, most of them were prisoners of war from China, which were dark-skinned people or prisoners of war, and sometimes light-skinned Arabs, right? So they would sell their prisoners of war because just because they dark-skinned, they're not from our village or tribe, right? So the truth is we're brothers, right? But I tell a lot of people I know so much because I have in my family is Hispanic. And also I know from people who date Hispanics and just in general talking, having a lot of real intellectual conversations of people like, in order for us to grow, we got to be real with each other. So what ends up happening is this. We know for a fact that when they started deporting the Hispanics, which is illegal, and I don't agree with it, to Mexico and to South America, it was a TV broadcast that's in like South America, and they was like, the only people that know how to deal with what's going on with us in America is the blacks. But she said, but we have always judged them and been so high up on them and felt like that, you know what I'm saying? And she said, it's time to kiss some royal black ass, right? And I was like, whoa. But her point was, and this is and if I could find a post on my feed, because I shared it, and she was saying like the only people that can help the Hispanics in America deal with ICE is you got to come sit down with your brothers and understand what is it that we understood or tried to know. Now, I'm not mentioning now, racist, I don't like the word, but are we not law-abiding the way we project it, the way the music make us see? Can we be better? For sure. I'm not going to sit here and sit across the table, and when Hispanics make good points to me about black people, I'm not too ignorant to sit back and be like, get offended. I mean, there's a lot of things that we got to get together too, but I'm not coming to the table to say who's better. I'm trying to get us to understand, to bridge the gap so that we can understand that we're really the same. You know what I'm saying? The reason why the land of Mexico in South America, before Christopher Columbus sold it, there were people living here already. So that's why in history, in like South America, the darker ones, after that was mixed, right? They became known as the blacker Moors because the people in South America started breeding to be lighter. So the highest concentration of Africans other than Africa in the world is South America. But they say that because they just trying to get you to understand that they were dark-skinned people there, and they want you to associate the dark-skinned people with Africa instead of you associating with it. They possibly could have been here for a long time. They came a long time from Africa, but I don't think any black people are really trying to dissociate themselves from Africa, really. We just trying to figure out where the homeland was. But racist, and I would say this, racist, no, because when we talk about race, you know, we're still dealing with oppression. We're still dealing with a lot of shit that we shouldn't be dealing with. You know what I'm saying? The shit with Chud the Biller walking around, you know, that's ignorant at its highest, right? But I understand law, so I understand that when I look at, like, if you go to jail and you look at a Hispanic's wristband, it says white. And since I study law, I know that what that really means. It's like, that means it doesn't identify, which really white is a status because it's supposed to be home, and they are home. But if that's the case, then why didn't they honor it, and why are they sending them out? So it's not that we're racist, right? It's just that if we see that this world, America's not equal, it's not free. And if they allow people to run around and do what they want to do, right? And let me turn my camera. If they allow people to turn around and do what they want to do, then what's going on? So, and I wanted y'all to see that picture before I get into it, because I want to give you my support evidence, right? Hold up. I'm going to take this off the charger for a second. One. So I told you earlier, I got a friend who, he dated a Hispanic woman, beautiful woman. And when her mom was light-skinned, her daddy was dark-skinned. When her mom came up, she didn't really deal with him because he was a dark-skinned man. Right? And it's like, and I learned this, right? And when her dad came up, he used to be like, yo, man, we family. But her dad come from a lineage of dark-skinned, and her mom, which they come from dark, if you go back, but they still hold it. So there's a level of racism in South America and Mexico as well, right? And of course, it was left after the enslavement and the Portuguese and the Europeans coming. But it's very judgmental for Hispanics to look at blacks in a certain manner when they never had to go through the chattel slavery, right? So that's why I tell a person with a mind that's so-called black, because I don't, you know what I'm saying? If you're well-studied, you understand that everybody was enslaved in different forms, but nobody went through chattel slavery. Chattel like cattle. Nobody, human rights was defiled down to animals. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very important that I make that point. So when you say we're the most racist group, I think racist is the wrong word. Because that means that you're judging a situation without fully understanding what's going on, right? And so I say to Hispanics, the language that you speak is not yours. It belongs to the so-called black people in America. And we got to be clear about this. Because I just, as the days go on, I keep seeing these posts. Right? If you look up, I need all of my Hispanics to find them law dictionaries. And I need them to start looking up certain things. Free white persons, meaning that's the people who are home to the lands of North, South, and Central America, from Alaska to South America. Anybody with Moorish blood. If you look up the true name of Spanish, it's called Moorish Latin. Right? And this is where I always bring it. I always say this live when I'm around all my Spanish friends and we having conversations. What is the Spanish word for love? Amor. So these are the things I'm trying to get you to see. The secret is in the language. But the reason why it's like this is because when you get to America, you're put in a system that already places you above the so-called blacks. And this week, I'm really tired of explaining this, but it's necessary because it wasn't online, right? You know what I'm saying? There's a certain person I met, right? They from another country. They from Europe, but they from a part of Europe, and they not racist at all. Very, very brilliant person. We was having a real conversation. And she said something to me. She said, well, in my country, you're a man, not a black man. You're a man, just like every other man. And I was like, I felt honest. She was like, because you are a man. But I just don't understand why y'all are so caught up on being black men. Like y'all, and I tried, and it took me an hour to get her to understand that the color system of white and black is a caste system. White meaning you're upper, black meaning you're lower. But on a legal mean, white meaning you're home, black meaning you're a foreigner. So like I explained to people, they say, well, so if the black people are Moors, what gives them any more right than us? Okay. The Indians lived on the outskirts. Most of the Indians lived in the 13 colonies where the Europeans were. That's the area that's given to the people who are like, they're allowed to live here, but the people that own the land live in the middle. A lot of people don't understand that. There's maps from the 16 and 1500s that say the Mauritania and its Indian associates. And most of us have never even heard the word Mauritania in the maps of America. You know what I'm saying? So I think black people, and I'm not saying black people, there's no such thing as black. When they hung so many of you, cut their private parts off, called them boys, and it's still going on today. People walking around Ted the Bitter, calling niggas, they chimping out. You know what I'm saying? And playing games, walking up to us, testing us, hoping that we emotionally respond to you, knowing that we already being toyed with, right? And people, it's okay with it. But it's sad because, and I say this to all my Hispanic friends with love, one day you're going to realize that these so-called dark-skinned people are your brother, but not even just your brothers. They're the founders of your civilizations, right? So I always had to check this. For one, every job I worked at in the kitchen growing up, you know, a lot of my Spanish friends, if they see this post, some of them gonna comment. They be like, they call me Way. We used to joke around, right? The issue with this whole situation is they always be like, you look like my grandfather. What does that tell you? When you in South America, for all my Hispanics who from South America, Mexico, that know about them statues, them Olmec heads and all them 50-foot statues of faces, right? The phenotype, I got it. Look, high cheekbones, you know, just like the picture. He had high cheekbones, right? But even in college, they'll say that in the Inca and the Maya, that the only 2%, the 3% of the civilization was dark skin. And I always got to check the teacher. So you're not going to tell them what 3%? Because some people say, do it matter? Yeah, the ruling class. See, they don't tell y'all that. See, understand, the Chinese, they don't know their real history. They got the indoctrinized history that the white men of China, right? Because that's what it is, put together and conspired. Europe don't know their real history, right? Because I'm talking to this lady and multiple people from Europe, and she tells me she's never heard of the Moors. And how is that possible when the streets, the roads, the Vatican, the colleges, and most of the temples and buildings that's there today were built by the Moors? Soap, water, baths, language, religions, mathematics, sciences, medicine, you know what I'm saying? Surgeries. That's who created what we know of Europe today, right? And it was crazy because when I was talking to her, and I'm jumping for a reason. So when I was talking to her at the end, and she wasn't being rude, she was like, yo, I've never heard of the Moors. But then about 30, 40 minutes later, she brought up the Dark Age. And it hit me. See, what the Dark Age really means, as far as historically, is that the Dark Age was before the Moors got there and after the Moors got ran out after 700 years. Darkness means lack of knowledge. And light means knowledge or thriving. You know what I'm saying? So when we got there, they was in darkness. And the Moors brought the Europeans and a lot of cultures and civilizations out of their dark ages and brought them into education and light and cleanliness and soaps and all of this. Dressing and fashion and jewelry and clothes, right? But then they got jealous of them. And they ran them out because the kings and queens thought that the kings and queens thought that they was going to stop listening to them. Now, one book that tell you this is The Black Mother. Another book that breaks this down is When the Moors Ruled Spain, right? So I'm just giving y'all stuff to go to, right? And so some people say, man, you just read. No, I don't just read books. You need it all. You got to read books. You got to talk to people. You got to understand. It's a trinity. You got to have them all. You can't just be somebody who understand through life. Like, man, life is the true teacher. Life is only 1/3 of the teacher, because you can have a hard life and get wisdom. But this other person got wisdom from going to college and studying the black thing. They black, but they didn't grow up in the hood, but they studied it and they just as passionate, but they don't have the experience, but they got the education, right? But then you got people who got the spirit and the education. I mean, got the education and got the experience, but they lack the interpersonal, the communicating and investigating and talking to other people in those cultures to get an understanding. And so when she spoke about the Dark Ages, and I said, well, the fact that you know about the Dark Age, when they wrote about the Dark Age, they used it as when the dark skinned people ruled Europe. You get what I'm saying? When you go back in history and you get the true paintings of when we talking about the wars in Tunis and all the places, these were a lot of brown people. You get what I'm saying? Because you got to remember that Mansa Musa and a lot of the Mali Empire came over in 2 different expeditions. Thousands in this expedition, thousands in this expedition. They were the richest people in the world. So understand why there's so many stone structures and monuments erected, because these are some of the wealthiest, what we call Africans in the world that came over. But we got to stop thinking that they're in Pangea, which had happened over millions of years. So first it separated and slowly it became a lake, a river, and then it through all of these tens of thousands of years, it's an ocean now. You get what I'm saying? And nobody's paying attention to that. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation. I know for a fact, another one of my homeboys, he did Hispanic. And it's not bad because they have structure and morals, but I've learned that a lot of Hispanics and racists look at us like we're uncivilized and we don't have it, but they forget that we were enslaved and stripped of all of our language and our tongue and our cultures. I never hear that, right? But I want all the Hispanics to know, out of love, mi amor, out of love, you're looking down on your own family. And if you black people that got a problem with Hispanics, you looking down on your own family. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, the land belongs to the brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? But the reason why ICE can do what they do is because you see the disconnect. The black people are not going to say nothing about this. They don't like it, but most black people are not going to step up and defend it because we're aware of how a lot of Hispanics view us, right? And I always want Hispanics this. Remember, I pray you don't take me the wrong way, but you'll date black men, but you have to realize that your son will always be seen as a black man, not as a Hispanic man. So even if the whole family light skin and you mess with a black man and that boy come out a certain complexion, he will not see that, right? And so that's why I said, one of my friends, when they send their daughter down there, they used to always talk about how dark she was. They stopped sending their peoples. You feel me? Another one of my friends, like I told you, mama was light skinned from South America, daddy was dark skinned. Mama didn't deal with him or talk to him because he was dark skinned, right? Another one of my friends, they deal with Hispanics, right? And when they deal with it, it's a great relationship, but there's certain things that he noticed. And I want all of my Hispanic brothers and sisters to understand that your culture, if you go back in history and trace it to its origins, everything in the Hispanic culture was the Moorish culture. And that's why I said earlier, the real name of Spanish is Moorish Latin, right? The word for love is mi amor. So the mother tongue they stripped from the slaves in America was what we call Spanish, right? When we talk about law, a lot of Hispanics or blacks know that the courtroom and the laws and the court system and all the laws were created by the Moors, not Europe, not South America. You know what I'm saying? Not China. The Moors, right? And to be a Moor means that you have mixed blood. That's the thing that we all need to understand. So there's already a variation, right? And it's like we need to stop playing about it. I got a lot of Hispanic friends, but when I really talk to them about it and I be real with them, they be like, nah, bro, it's true. Like a lot of us do really rock with black people because we know we family. Like we get it. But then it's a lot of us that don't, because like, you know, just like it's some black people who don't rock with Hispanics, right? But I think it's crazy. It's like, what makes black people racist? Because they speak out. Now, I will say this clearly. I had one of my white friends say to me one day, because I got white friends, for sure. I ain't knocking it. I ain't egotistical. You know what I'm saying? It's about the type of person you are. But I understand the truth, what's going on. And they said, well, and they made a good point. One of my white friends said, well, you know how y'all feel when people call y'all out your name and all the unnecessary shit, right? Because they didn't agree with it. But he said, how do you think, what about the white people that died fighting with black people, right? And then you hear somebody like Malcolm X say, all white people are, you know what I'm saying, the D's, right? Then what? And I thought about it. I said, yo, I could understand your point, because it's like saying everybody. But in the way they taught the culture was, well, it is some good people, but are the good working together to fight against the bad in their cultures? You know what I'm saying? And so that's when I started realizing, like, having these conversations is that we need to get a better understanding. Black people, they could definitely do better. And if you watch my convos or my lives, you know I ain't into all of that super excuses at all. I'm accountable. And I don't agree with everything. But we got to stop. No race on earth was enslaved in the form that we was, right? Every culture, whether if you coming from Mexico or South America, when you get your citizenship, you got access to capital, you get loans, you can start businesses. And when y'all could come here in a year and get y'all stuff together too, and next thing y'all know, y'all get a loan, start y'all business, and y'all thrive, y'all work together. But y'all have no idea that them loans, we can't get them, most of us, because they put so many stipulations on it that y'all don't have. So whether if it's an African coming from Africa, he can go open up. If you come from Europe, China, you can come in and start a store, a gas station, and get the loan, no problem. But people don't really understand that, you feel me? And so that's why when I seen it, it was like, all right, cool. And what I've learned is that, and we have to understand that, like I say, the so-called black people, we have to understand that the rest of the world hears this new knowledge and they say, like, I see it every day on live, man. People write on my lives, man, black people ain't nothing but slaves and will forever be slaves. This is what people write on these joints. Black people say, man, y'all ain't, the best thing black people ever did was work for white people. Right? And it's crazy. But that's when I say, when the Hispanics who know I'm not lying, who understand what I'm saying, is saying that they know that there's a lot of indigenous areas of the people that come from these areas, and they're very dark skinned. But they live out in the way, and they're not even involved. But everywhere we go in the world, we see the light-skinned Hispanic, right? We see the light-skinned Mexican, right? We see the light-skinned Guatemalan, right? We see the light-skinned Brazilians. We see the light-skinned Chinese. We see the light-skinned Egyptians. We see the light-skinned, because the word European doesn't mean that they were white. Because Europe was an African god, right? So when we hear Europeans invaded America, there were people that look like me and you. They just were born in Europe. Because Hannibal and them ruled Europe for so long. There's no way they could rule 700 years, have all them kids, and they just disappeared. Right? But why is it's a worldwide supremacy of the lighter skin? And so when I talk to different cultures about history, not everybody's disrespectful, but I've learned enough and been in enough places, and people know me. I was on radio all over the country. You know what I'm saying? People know how far I've reached. And that's why I say we have to understand that when other cultures see it, we have to understand why there's a rebellion and a rejection towards it. Because it's like saying, for example, the Chinese, you know, the Great Wall of China and all the great structures, that's their pride. That's that right there. That's their moment in history. This is who we are. We're great. But if you're teaching that their dynasty was built by dark-skinned people that became the Chinese, the Qing dynasty, then it strips them of their national pride, and it makes them feel like, well, what did we do, right? If we go to South America and we go to La Venta, right? And we go to these areas where these Olmec heads are, there's black men faces, there's Hispanic men faces, and there's Chinese looking men faces. But the secret word, you have to do your research. At the time, what did they look like? And we have to understand, from Mexico to South America, and I keep saying this because I want my Hispanic, they're my brothers and sisters. We have to have this conversation. And I'm not afraid to say, you know what, you're right. Looking at black people in certain ways, it looks ignorant. You're right. I'm not going to argue with you, because I'm one of the people that want better for my culture. And everything they doing isn't right. And I've been very vocal, you know what I'm saying, about this. When do we want better than what it is? But we also have to remember that there is a system in place keeping people distracted. And unfortunately, everybody not waking up at the same time because they're caught up. That's an issue, right? But no matter where we go to Mexico, There's groups of Mexicans who are in the same position. If we go to Guatemala, the same thing. But the secret is, I challenge all Hispanics to trace the origins of their culture, right? Because I told you I study law. Mi amor is the word for love. Why? Because to be Hispanic, to be amor means love. See, it's not them. We're stupid people, da da da. But I will take on any intellectual, no ignorance. I will take on any Hispanic scholar, historian who wants to argue that their roots doesn't come from a darker descent. Right? Why you think Brazilian women look so good? Why you think, look at them. So we gonna keep acting like when Christopher Columbus sold South America to the Portuguese illegally, we're gonna keep acting like that when they brought, because in the book, right, they brought over the people they brought from the Pacific Islands first, and they were a more common people. And they let them oversee over the dark-skinned people that they found in, the Mexicos, the South Americans at the bottom and stuff like that all over. But it should be said, do your research. The Olmecs were a dark civilization in time, right? The Mayan Inca was mixed, but the ruling class, the kings and queens, were Africans, or what we call Africans, or Moorish descent, because Moorish means dark, right? But I see, and I look online every day, and I constantly see this. It's a weird thing. Like I've seen a Hispanic guy tell me, he said, and I was like, I agree with you. I need more. I need you to elaborate. He's saying that they were dark-skinned people here, but they weren't from Africa. I agree with you. I agree. Right? The issue is in this situation is that we don't know our history, people. So I just pointed fingers at the Hispanics. Black people, we don't know our history. You can grow up. It's hard. Like being accountable is the hardest thing in the world, right? And I always see a bunch of men in the black culture say, man, our women never accountable. And let me explain it even better without any insults. I'm at work. I'm a cook, right? I'm cutting steaks. And so my boss, he a little younger than me, right? And he come to me and he like, my kitchen manager, he like, yo, so what you doing wrong? My first instinct is like, that's how we all feel. But I caught myself and I was like, tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can get it right. But he recognized that something wasn't right, right? He's a black man, right? And he looked at me and he was like, come meet me in the back. And when I go to the back, he tells me like, yo, why you jam up like that, bro? And I had to be real with him. It was like, it wasn't what you said. When you said what you said to me, I felt like I know what I'm doing. And that's how we feel like, dang, I'm just cutting it. And it's like some people, but we don't like to, we call it micromanage, but we need to be micromanaged at times. Not all the time, but we do need to be able to set correction. And it's not just the women, right? The women have the highest rate of it, but the men in certain areas are not accountable anymore either, right? But that's not just black people. We can go to any continent, any culture, and you're going to see this in their civilization. It's always, right? That's life. But, and it bothers me. So I had to admit to him that, I said, it's not that, but I had to catch myself. And me having to catch myself is crazy. So I get offended because it's like, for example, if you know me and you Hispanic and I make this post, I'm a very serious person. You know what I'm saying? I'm a very serious person. I'm a very respectful person. I will never disrespect you. So I don't mean no harm, but that's why the internet is dangerous. So let's say I make a post and one of my Hispanic friends laugh at the post. I'm gonna inbox them because I might not understand what they mean now. Let's say my Hispanic friend laughed because they thought like, oh, that's stupid. But I didn't know, right? But what I'm saying, and this is what I'm gonna try to say. I'm saying that I misunderstood it, right? Because it could have been, listen, look, that's why I say, and just hear me out. when I see a laugh on a post, black people could assume they're laughing about the topic when, let's say, the Hispanic person is thinking this is stupid, right? So that's why I would inbox. I'm not offended. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it'll make it that, you know what I'm saying? I know we brothers and sisters. I know our true connection. And if you want more proof from my Hispanic friends, look up the King Alfred plan. Eisenhower and the presidents came up with a 12 to 13 hour plan to exterminate all of the black people in America if they ever try to take the land back. It's called the King Alfred plan. This is like 82, 83. Before he left office, they added all the Hispanics and Latinos to it, right? And Eisenhower wrote, he said, I know you're thinking, why did I add the Hispanics and the Latinos? He said, because the blacks and the Hispanics and the Latinos are bound to the continent by heritage. He just told you that the blacks, the Latinos, and the Hispanics they're all brothers and sisters, and this is their land. They're bound. Being bound means you're tied to it. So if you're bound to the continent, you can't be shipped off. You got to keep them on this continent. That's international law. And so he recognized that you can't just get rid of them. You got to get rid of the whole bloodline. And the Moorish bloodline is from the so-called black people, the Hispanics, and the Latino. That's the Moorish bloodline. Even Europe, that's a part of the Moorish bloodline. They won't say it, but that's what they mean by black nobility in Europe. If you trace the royal families back, it'll take you back to black families. Europe is a African god. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say this. I don't think that it's not so much I'll be offended, but it's very important. It's very important because it's not something, this is not me just coming to Facebook, getting in my feelings, thinking I understand. I've had thousands of conversations with my Hispanic friends, my black friends who date Hispanics, right? My Hispanic friends who date black men or women, right? And their relationship don't be the problem most of the time. But it becomes later, like the kids go to certain parts and then it's like they keep telling, like, you know, call them morena. So let me ask you a question. What is morena for all my Hispanics? And I'm being real with y'all. So you're free to type in and to write what you want. I'm not going to attack you. Don't attack me. But if you do, I'm not going to feed back into you. You know what I'm saying? But let's be real with each other. What does morena mean? When you say moreno, it's masculine. When you say morena, it's feminine. It means the man or the woman is brown. Right? And remember Big Pun was like, when his song, like, Don't Want to Be a Player No More, he was like, Boricua Morena. How many more times does the more word pop up in South America culture? Just like how many times does Mount Rushmore and all of these names, the Whigamore party, the reason why the presidents wear wigs is because they were getting taught law by the presidents. And look it up, it's called the Whigamore party. It's a group of Europeans who started wearing wigs because the Moors wore wigs when they was in the courtroom. So, and I go here because I didn't take offense to what he said. I thought it was a great conversation to have. Right? And he just said he thinks the blacks are the most racist group. So I went a little left and a little right to get background. But racist, I don't think is the right word. Now, is there racist black? For sure. I mean, let me say this, to all my Hispanics and all my Latinos. If black people, let's say black people conquer America in 1,000 years or in 3,000, right? And then we come to South America and Mexico and we take everything, we enslave everybody, we kill the warrior class and all the strong men, enslave the old people, the women and children. That's the rules of war. That's what slavery is. And then we change the history books and we change everything about them and we mistreat them and we constantly every so often put our foot on their neck, shooting them in the streets, hanging them from trees, cutting their testicles off, doing all of this stuff. But if you go to Europe, and you study when the Moors was in Europe, you'll see stuff like the Moors sex trafficking European women all over the Iberian Peninsula. So that's why partially slavery is karma, right? But you're not going to hear these crazy, you're not going to hear stories about us doing anything like that in Europe. Hospitals, clearing up diseases, right? Doing all of this stuff to get ran out. And all of the medical books they had, it was like 5 million. after they ran the Moors out of Europe, they burnt them in the middle of the streets because they said they was Qurans because it was written in Arabic. You get what I'm saying? And so another proof, now I'm going to show you. If you know the true history of Christopher Columbus, this is more proof. In the book, They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima, and he's showing you the proof in the book. When Christopher Columbus came to America, he landed and then took 3 indigenous people. They were all brown. He took them to the Portuguese. He wasn't supposed to, and because that's how he ended up selling to them. But they all drew pictures of like Mexico, which is called Mexico, and all of South America, or Mexam, right? And he brought back some cotton and like 3 to 6 gold spears from the Americas that the indigenous people gave Christopher Columbus. And so, of course, the Moors had already ruled Spain and Europe and stuff, and Sicily, Italy. So they already had like technology and sciences and stuff. So they took the gold spears and they looked under microscopes to see the mix, because it has to be like a mixture of metals and gold in order to get the gold hard, or coppers. And the Moors and the Africans who came up and ruled Spain and Europe, they still had those gold spears that they brought, because that's what we had when we did. So they still had them. It's because some of them was gifts. And they were the exact same combination of metal and alloys, right? Meaning every civilization, especially when you turn on the cultures in ancient times or in back in the day, they had their own system, their own fashions, their own foods, right? That's what made them unique, right? And he found out that it was the exact same combination as the people of the Nile Valley civilization and the Moors, right? Another proof, cotton that was sold during slavery, right? And then I'm giving y'all the references. They came before Columbus. I was looking up to find a real book. My mama got it right now. He also took cotton with him, right? And what he learned, and this is in a book, and I'm going to use, I can't remember the exact name, but I'm going to pronounce it the best way I can. In Egypt, let's say that's marsupial cotton, right? And in the American and South America cotton is called marsupial, right? Let's just say. The cotton that Christopher Columbus took back to Europe when he first got here, it was half marsupial and half marsupial. So the reason why before slavery started, somehow the seeds of Egyptian cotton somehow made it to South America and the Virgin Islands and Mexico and the Americas, and they hybrid the seeds together to make a cotton that was better than both. And it was such a good cotton, which means that was a cash crop for the indigenous before slavery was even existed. And think about it. Slavery hadn't happened yet when Columbus first landed. So if Columbus took this back and got this tested and he found out he was half Egyptian cotton, half South American cotton, well, you can't say, oh, well, it came over it don't work like that. Seeds ain't floating over the river, over an ocean, and then making it to it don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? It don't. It had to be brought over. But if you believe the ideology that the so-called African or black man never had a boat or did anything, that's a lie. They built the papayas, what is it called? The lotus leaf, and the papaya leaf, which is with the papyrus. The papyrus plant, the same one that they wrote that's what we get the word paper from. So the Egyptians used the papyrus plant for paper. But the main part of the plant, because under the pyramids of Giza, under one of those pyramids, it's a boat, a huge boat, but it's made out of wood. And the scientists started realizing like 10, 15 years ago, it's wrong. There's no way that this could float. But they left certain pieces like in that material or that plant. So they tried the boat out of wood, and they knew instantly like this boat can't make it across the ocean. But years later, when another European came, he used only the papyrus plant to build the boat. But it was a part on Khufu's boat that he thought just was extra, and he didn't use it, and he almost made it. And then the boat started to sink, but he had other boats with him, and then he got off and that boat sunk. And then he went back and added that piece that's on the boat of Khufu under the pyramids, because he thought it was just something for like decoration. And when he added it, he realized it was for steering. And so that boat made out of the papyrus plant made it all the way to South America. You could look this up, and the European did the experiment. So that proves to you that, one, that they could get here. And not only that, you don't even need paddle boats and stuff. Once you get to a certain part, the current's going to take you into the bottom of South America, the middle of South America, and the bottom of Mexico. Those are the currents. And so that's why I keep trying to say, remember, the richest man in the world name was Mansa Musa. That's his king name. His name was Abu Bakari. His grandfather left on the thrones and came to the Americas. They can prove one of the last kings of the Aztecs was Mansa Musa. His name became Montezuma. We got to study. We got a lot of studying to do. You know what I'm saying? And I started dedicating my life to a lot of this research outside of music because I realized nobody's going to do the work. So, you know, forgive me if it made some people look at me differently. I'm cool with it. You know what I'm saying? But when I'm in rooms with brilliant minds, not worried about appearance or just, you know, the color of my skin. When I'm in rooms, they respect it because they know I'm not just talking. And I always talk to the man I speak so you can go back and trace it. But no, it's not the Hispanics' fault like they're just racist or being funny. The same way how they gave us the wrong education in America, they gave them the wrong education in Mexico. They gave them a white supremacist education in South America too, and in Europe and in China and in Africa. So that's why I say my thing to bring this to the forefront. It's gonna come a time where everybody gonna have to know the truths of the world. You know what I'm saying? But we need to know who we are in our history to fix these problems. And I talk to black people, and I'm gonna say because that's what we understand. But I talk to people, and I used to always ask them like, "Yo, you see what's going on with ICE? How come we not getting up and getting in the streets with them?" And it's kind of like the same reason why, you know, we feel like we feel like it's not our fight. Just like they feel like it's not their fight. But neither one of these people understand their history to realize that, yo, regardless how y'all feel, you might not like your cousin. You still gonna let strangers go up in there and just do what they want with your nephews and nieces and your cousins and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And my only point of saying what I said of this whole thing is we gotta have a conversation. So if anybody see this live, I want to make this clear. If anybody see this live and you disagree with me, I'm 100% okay with that. But I ask you to, if you disagree with me, say what you say, but then also post the evidence. Post your evidence. Now, remember, just because you post your evidence, I'm gonna check it, just like how you should check mine. And I'm not asking anybody believe nothing I say. Fact check it. And you'd be surprised that it's so much I left out. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to remember that. And I'm talking about, and this came from people very close to let you know, yes, there is the same way we feel in America is still going on with the Hispanics and the light-skinned Hispanics, dark-skinned, light-skinned Latinos, dark-skinned Latinos. But remember, mi amor, your word for love is mi amor. I'm amor. Me's amor. Right? And the more I kept going down all these words, morena. Ask yourself and start asking questions to your grandparents and the people in your culture who know history. Go to the historians and start asking real questions. Who study real history, not just the indoctrinized books. So if anybody, you know, I mean respecting this conversation because I wasn't trying to be funny. You know what I'm saying? I ain't into disrespecting y'all. I hope y'all won't disrespect us. And I would love to see Hispanics break down this conversation from their point of view and also can give it to me in an intellectual conversation so I can understand, right? But everybody got to start understanding that the rest of the world is uncomfortable when we start saying, the Moors or the black, so-called blacks, they did China, they did this, the Moors did this, or the African did this, and they start making everybody else around the world like, well, what did we do? Not realizing that they're descendants of our family. Depending on what happened. You know what I'm saying? So if a Portuguese mixed with an indigenous person and then they had kids and they bred to be lighter, you know what I'm saying? Remember, and also remember, as what we call black or Moorish, the black woman always produces multiple shades, including what we call albino and European. But they're not, I'm not saying that they're just albinos, but if you look scientifically, it's like everything is right. Like it took years to get it a well balance. You know what I'm saying? To get to really be well. And I'm not attacking anybody's culture or what they believe. I'm just telling you that every time you attack a black person or black people, and not saying that was his point. He just said racist. Racist, no. Tired? Yeah. Oppressed? Yeah. And the crazy part, this man, I would love to know, if anybody know him, tag him. Because I want to know where he's from. And I challenge him to go live and go to his home country, you know what I'm saying? And prove that the dark-skinned people in that Hispanic country he live ain't being mistreated. Because the indigenous Mexicans are dark-skinned. And this information came from, let me see, while we saying, I want to see if I can find this video. Because y'all probably thinking I made this. It was so minutes ago that joint came up. So, and that's what I was saying. Like, I got family, and I just want to make this clear before I get off, because I'm about to get off of here. You know what I'm saying? But before I go, I do want to say one thing about a conversation I had with a lady that I very respect, very brilliant mind, who's from Albania, which is Europe. And I had to stop her. Like, you don't look like a European. And she was like, I'm from Albania. And so I try to explain her, Al is Moorish, just like, or Muslim, as they would say, right? Al means the. So alligator, the gator, right? You know what I'm saying? Algorithm. Algeria, right? All of these places don't understand that if they trace their origins back, you're still going to get back to some indigenous people. And, you know, there's light skin, dark skin, brown skin, many dark shades and everything. But we got to start asking, how do we get so many different variations, right? And it comes down to, because not all brown people look the same. They had skin. Not all of them had the same complexion, no matter where you go. And we travel. So I just hope that I can bring a little bit of light to the situation. And all my Hispanic friends, because I know, you know, I don't say I hope y'all don't get offended, because I came in intellectual. It's not much more intellect I could bring with it with no emotion. You know what I'm saying? But I hope that all of my Hispanics, you have every right to state your mind up here and just do it in respect. Like, I know it's not all. That's why in my post I said not all. Just like not all white people are racist. Not all black people are ghetto. Like, not all black people are this, right? Not all black people is, you know what I'm saying? So I pray that my brothers and sisters can see this post in respect and actually, like, bridge the gap for me, for the Hispanics that know that we are brothers and sisters. And you know what I mean? So I appreciate y'all for tapping in with Willie Walker BH. I'm out.